Okay, this is going to be the mid-semester review. If I say midterm review, people get nervous like there's a midterm test. There isn't a midterm test. This is just to get you in the lab and get you start practicing. I'm going to record all 4 deployment types, but what I'm going to do is I installed Docker already, and I'm going to do the pull of the images now because it's going to take so much time. So while I'm going over other stuff, I'll be pulling images. mcr.microsoft. This is from the notes that I put on D2L. I'm only going to do server core. Okay, so guys, we have 4 deployment types. Four that we covered in class. We're going to deploy a server using off the DVD. The second one was WDS. Third one was a NanoServer. And the fourth one was Docker. So I'm going to cover this one first. Guys, I've installed Docker. I've started pulling containers from the web, images from the web, just to speed up the lab. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to install server using the DVD. I'm going to create a new virtual machine.
Are you recording, Professor?
I am. Test 01. It's going to be a second generation machine. Dynamic memory. I'm just going to bump up the startup memory for a little bit. I'm going to connect it to the private network. Let it create a blank hard disk. I'm going to install it from a DVD image. We have the images on our second hard disk, and I'm going to do 2019. Finish. I'm going to connect to it before I boot because it's going to ask me to press any key to boot to the DVD, and I don't want to miss that. So I'm going to click Start, click in the black box. I hit the Enter key. And the installation is easy. It's just straightforward. I'm going to let it do automatic partitioning. I'm not going to customize the partition at all. I don't have a key. Desktop experience standard, not the data center. Accept the end user license agreement. A normal installation is called a custom install. There's my hard disk. I'm not going to manually create partitions, just click next. And it's going to do its thing. It's going to reboot, prompt me for my location, password, things like that. Nothing real special. The installation is the same whether we did it to a virtual machine or a real machine. So while that's going on, I'm going to move to the next installation type. A WDS. A WDS server is really a DHCP server, a file server, and a TFTP server. So I'm going to sign in to our WDS machine as the local admin, as the domain admin rather. I'm going to change the computer name because the script is not working right. I'm going to call it WDS. CS01, my station number, WDS.
Professor,
Yeah.
if I'm practicing the lab, so should I have to put, my station in there too?
Yeah, I would. Just, it doesn't matter what name you call it over there. It's important that you do this as the domain admin. If I say, who am I? Who am I? If it doesn't come back Contoso /administrator, you're going to have issues. So sign out, sign in as the right user account. So the first thing I'm going to do is install WDS and DHCP. In the lab, I did it separately. Now I'm going to do them all at once. So DHCP and WDS. This WDS will set up my file server and my TFTP server. This file server to pass out the installation image, the TFTP server to pass out the boot image. Just walk through the wizard, reboot if necessary. I'm just going to check the recording, make sure it's going. Okay, we're still recording. On the day of the test, I'm not going to ask you to install, I'll do that later, or create answer files. I'm just going to ask you to download the answer files that I have put up on the web.
What's the version of Windows you pulled? 1908 or 1803?
I pulled 1809.
Okay.
Incidentally, those are on the notes as well. What I actually pulled is the very beginning of the notes. So once that's done, I'm going to click here to complete the DHCP installation. I'm going to authorize my server to pass out IP addresses, and I'm going to create two groups, one for DHCP users to view the configuration and DHCP admins to change the configuration. I'm going to go and configure the DHCP first. The job of this machine is to pass out IP settings that are appropriate for my private network. So I'm going to drill down to IPv4, create a new scope. That's a subnet. I'm going to call it private, and the description will be my subnet ID. which is the classical 172.16.0.0 network. The first usable IP is 0.1. The last usable IP is 255.254. These are the IPs I'm going to actually pass out to clients. I'm going to keep the first 100 in reserve for servers, so I don't want to pass those out in case I want to assign a static IP. Give the client the IP address for 8 days. I want to configure the additional options now. DNS server, the DHCP server, DNS server, the domain name, and the router. Click Add. Domain name, DNS, we got that from the local machine because we're going to the domain. This blue symbol, just hit refresh and you're done. So this will pass out to the client an IP address and everything else it needs to get connected to the network. The next thing I'm going to do is configure the WDS. But before I do, I'm going to add a DVD drive to this machine and insert the installation media. So I minimize the virtual machine, or not minimize, just not maximize the virtual machine. Go to File, Settings, highlight SCSI controller, add a DVD drive, and choose our installation media, which is, again, on the same data, ISO, the Server 2019 disk. So now it looks like this virtual machine has a DVD drive. So now I'm going to start the WDS. Windows Deployment Services. Highlight your server name and say Configure Server. This wizard crashes, guys. You know, if you follow instructions off a website or something, there's going to be more menu options. We just have to deal with it. Integrated in Active Directory. It's going to create a shared folder called Remote Install. It'll create a local folder, then share it. This will be the place where we store our answer files and the images. Just giving you a warning saying you really shouldn't put this on your C drive, but that's fine for this lab. We don't want to listen to the DHCP ports because it's on the same machine as the WDS. So we're just telling the WDS not to listen to the DHCP ports. The DHCP server will do that itself. It's going to create this option 64 as in DHCP, and I'll show it to you. I'm going to respond to all clients, but require administration approval. And it dies. I'm going to manually start it. I'm going to go to Properties. Under Pixie Response, we checked this, but it didn't save it. Then for 2019, we have another glitch. The TFTP, we've got to uncheck this and allow it to have a specific size for our TFTP packets. Apparently this is an issue. Microsoft will probably fix it doing an update or something like that. So I'm going to add a boot image. I'm going to browse to the DVD drive, go to the sources folder, choose bootwim. I'm I'm going to add that boot image to my WDS. Now I'm going to add an installation disk. Right click, add an installation image. It's going to create a folder under remote install. That's the name of the folder. You can create your own groups, say server images, client images, Windows 10, whatever your organization wants. Browse, grab the install WIM. I only want to do one image. You could do all four. But just to speed up the installation, this standard includes a desktop. The core doesn't. So there's my installation disk. This is the disk I'm going to use to boot clients to. I'm going to connect to BC Online to grab the answer files. I have 2 answer files that we made for 2016. That's the first one. This is the second one. So I'm going to grab these 2 disks, or 2 answer files, copy them. If you remember, we put them in this folder, remote install. Now I need to integrate those answer files into WDS. The first answer file is used when I boot up the server to start the installation, create the partitions, things like that. So I'm going to right click the server name, and under client, I'm going to say enable unattend installation. We're using generation 2 machines, 64-bit. If we're booting to a virtual machine or we're booting a real machine, it doesn't really matter. If it's a generation 2 machine, this will work. I'm going to browse here, grab the WinPE, because at that point I'm booting to the WinPE disk, the WinPE boot image. Click OK. The next one is it's going to be attached to the image itself. Once I boot up, I'm going to configure the administrator password, the locale, all those things. So I'm going to go into property, select an unattended answer file. I put it under remote installs, and that's the out-of-the-box experience. Okay. We cannot deploy images, nor do you want to, as the network, as the domain admin. So what you want to do is create another user account, lock it down, and deploy images as that user account. So I'm going to create a new user account on my DC. Excuse me. Once I get to my DC, I'm going to go to Tools, Active Directory Users, and Computers. Once the utility opens up, drill down to Users, right-click, say New User. When I create a user account here, anyone can use this user account to sign in to other machines in the domain, not just this machine. I'm going to call that account Join Domain. Join Domain, all one word. Set my password. I'm not going to reset the password when they first log in. When I join computers to the domain, the computer accounts go in this container. So I need to allow join domain to have full control over that container. I could get granular and change it up a little bit, but I'm just going to give full control. So I'm going to right-click the container, delegate control to join domain. Custom. No changes here. Full control. Finish. If I go Action, Advanced Features, this is kind of off topic. Go to Properties, and under the Security tab, I can now see Join Domain has full control. If I go through that wizard and delegate control, it works. If I go and manually add Join Domain here and give them full control, it doesn't work. I don't know why. It should be the same result, but it's not. For some reason, going through the wizard does something different that this does. If I don't show advanced features and I right-click a container, I don't see the security tab. So we created a user account called Join Domain, gave Join Domain full control over that container. When I create new machines, that's where their accounts are going to go automatically. So the next thing we want to do is prevent the Join Domain user account from being abused. Basically, we don't want to allow someone to sit on any machine other than our WDS server and sign in. We also want to give Join Domain unlimited joins to the domain. By default, user accounts can only join 10 computers to the domain. That's the only purpose that this account has, so we want unlimited joins. Now I could go around to each individual machine and do everything that I need to do. or I can create one policy and push it out to all machines. So I'm going to do the one policy. So I'm going to go to Tools, Group Policy Management. I'm going to go down to Group Policy Objects. Create a new policy. I'm going to call it Join Domain Settings. Whatever name you want. I don't care. Edit settings. I know where the settings are because I've been doing this for a while. You might have to hunt and peck for a little bit until you get comfortable where things are. Deny login locally. Join domain. I do not want this account to sit down in any workstation and sign in. There's no reason for that. The only place join domain should be able to sign in is on the WDS server. Who's allowed to add workstation to the domain? Again, join domain. This will be unlimited joins. Actually, I should do this like this, guys. You get different results. Add, I'm going to do browse, then type join domain. I'm going to go down here and do the same thing. Remove this. Join domain. So those are the only two settings. Right now, everyone will read the policy. But this is who's going to apply it. I want everyone to apply it. I'm going to go to settings. No. I'm going to go to delegation. I'm going to go to advanced. I'm going to click add. I'm going to look for a computer account. CS01 WDS $. So for this machine, I want to deny it to apply the policy. Because if it applied the policy, join domain would not be allowed to log in. I want all the other machines to apply the policy, but the WDS. I'm going to click OK. It's saying that's going to override any other permission. That's fine. That's what we want. If I go back to scope, authenticated users will read and apply except for WDS. My DC will read and apply it, which will give the machines unlimited joins. My workstations will apply it, which will prevent join domain from signing in locally. Now we're going to link that to our domain. So that right now is stored in a place where it doesn't mean anything. It's just a place to store a document. By linking it to the domain, that means everyone in this domain will read this policy, and everyone will apply it except for the WDS server. So we created a user account, locked it down. Now I'm going to use that user account on the WDS server. While I'm still signed into the domain admin on the WDS, I'm going to right click, computer management. I'm going to make join domain a local admin on this machine. Again, I'm going to right click the start menu, go to computer management, expand local users and groups, go to groups, administrator, and add join domain. Now join domain will be a local admin. When we installed WDS, it created this remote install folder. This is where my answer files and my images are kept. I need to grant join domain full control over that. So I'm going to right click, go to properties, go to security. I'm giving it overkill because in reality, join domain already has full control. But I'm just going to show you how to do this anyways, just in case you don't make them a domain admin. I'm going to grant join domain full control. Now at this point, I can sign out as domain admin and deploy an image. Now I'm going to sign in as join domain. I'm going to go back to my real machine, create a new virtual machine called test2, gen2, pump up the boot memory because of that RAM disk. Create a blank hard disk, install from the network. I'm going to connect to test2 and start it. Press enter. Remember I did the name and approve thing? I'm signed in as join domain now, not as the domain admin. I'm going to go to Tools, Windows Deployment Services, pending devices, name and approve. Test 02. And at this point, it should automate the installation. Guys, while that is going on, let's go back to our test 1 machine. This is the installation off the DVD. I'm going to set my password. And this installation is done. I don't care about the installation. I'm just going to turn it off and kill it. So this is, I'm going to allow this to do its thing. Guys, let's take our first break now. Okay, guys, I'm going to check how my image is going.
So we don't need test 1 anymore, right?
Correct. I'm going to sign in as Contoso administrator. It automatically joined to the domain, no problem. Remember, I had to tweak the answer file because there was a glitch with it. It didn't prompt me for product ID or anything because remember we used that KMS deployment key. You can't activate it, but it'll allow you to get through the automatic deployment rather.
Could you configure the virtual machine to have the resolution be 1080p automatically?
Yes. Join to the domain. The computer name is set. If I go to disk management, we created 2 partitions. 150 EFI system partition. That's FAT32. Again, locked down because of that GUID. I can't make changes to it. And our Windows partition. That's NTFS. That was all done with our answer file. Yes, there's a lot more I can do. I can dictate what screen resolution I have. I can dictate the desktop background. I can create user accounts during the deployment. All kind of things. This is called light touch. Because remember we had to do that name and approve. If I somehow get the answer file with the computer name built in, I can do zero touch, where I don't have to get involved at all. I can deploy as many images as I want. That's the name of the game. Automation. It's completely automated. Again, guys, I don't care about this machine. I'm going to turn it off and delete it. I'm going to go to PowerShell and do remove item path C users public documents Hyper-V virtual hard disk. I'm going to do test *.vhdx. I'm just going to delete all the test disks. I don't need them anymore. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is the NanoServers. So guys, we've done this. We've done this. What's the advantage of this? Very simple. No setup at all. Just create a virtual machine or a real machine, put the disk in, walk through the wizard. What's the advantage of this?
Automation.
Yeah. Long term makes my life easier. Short term, difficult setup. NanoServers. We're moving a lot to NanoServers because of the memory requirement and the disk requirement. There's no interface whatsoever. Everything has to be done remotely. So let's go over creating a NanoServer. I'm going to create the NanoServer disk on my real machine. So I'm going to create a folder called Blob. I'm going to right click it, share it, get everyone full control for the old share permissions. And the new permissions, I'm going to give also everyone control. Just to make my life easier. That's for the offline join. Because I can't go to the NanoServer and join it to the domain because it has no graphic interface, I have to make this offline join, create this blob file, then import it in the NanoServer. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my DVD. and mount it on my real machine. I have to use this one, guys, because the Nano software is not in 2019. I don't know why. So I'm doing this one because the NanoServer software is there. So I'm going to
Which one has the NanoServer software?
the 2016,
Oh,
not the 2019. I'm going to go to my C drive. I'm going to go to Users, Administrator. I'm just trying to follow the notes. So if you go with the notes, you'll see it. Yeah, this is I put it here. New folder called NanoServer. It's called Nano. I'm going to go to the DVD, go to the NanoServer, copy this directory. Go back to that Nano folder and paste it in there. Now I'm going to create that offline join file, the blob. I'm going to open up a command prompt to PowerShell. I'm going to do djoin. This is not a PowerShell command. This is just a regular command shell, an old command shell that's been around for the dawn of time. I'm going to provision. Domain name is contoso.com. Sorry, before I do that, guys, I need to trust that machine. I need to trust the machine. Set item. I'm going to give that machine an IP of, eventually, once I set it up, of 172.16.0.100. So I'm going to trust that machine even though it's not signed in yet. So now I'm going to do the join blob. Provision, domain, contoso.com, machine. The name I'm going to give it is CS01 Nano. This is where I name it. This is where you name that server. Once it's up, save the file to that network share on my real machine. 172.16.01/blob/ and the name is going to be blob.txt. Guys, if this doesn't work, you might have to rerun the command, but you might have to use this reuse. Because what it's going to do when I do that offline join, it's actually going to create a computer account for that machine. I'm going to just, right there is the command. This creates a trust relationship. This is the command to create the offline join. Again, this is part of the notes. I'm done with the DC. If I go to that blob folder I can see my blob file. Now I need to run the command to create the nano disk. It's not that I don't trust you that you can't run the command, but you guys with your typos. Guys, I gave you this script. And basically, here's my script to create that NanoServer. So the first thing we need to do is cd into NanoServer image generator. There's some PowerShell commands that we don't have. So I need to run a command to import those NanoServer commands. And you have to be in this directory to do it. Because if I do a dir, I can see there's some files. So I'm going to do import module. Look at this. I'm going to do where's my command? Sorry. If I do this and hit tab, just erase the end part. Don't put any extension. It'll know what extension to use. Then verbose, just to give me some output. And imported those commands. I now have some new commands. Guys, I'm just going to copy this. I recommend that you do the same, because if you don't, you'll have too many typos. Paste it in there, hit enter. I put my blob in a different folder. I put it under C drive. Now it's going to create the disk. The reason I'm doing this now, to separate it from the rest of the class, this was the easy part. Now we're going to start creating full networks using clustering and things like that, storage arrays. So I need you to have this under your belt before you move on to the other stuff. You've got to get in the lab and practice. Room 128, building 13, there's a lab there. People's complaint is there's no one there to help them. Guys, I can't afford to have, there's no one out there that exists that's willing to work for $9 an hour working in an open lab that knows this kind of stuff. So I'm there from 2:30 to 6, trying to get my help the best you can. If you can't do it during the day when I'm available, go in there at night, but don't go alone. Go with 2 or 3 of your classmates, so if one person forgets something, someone else might help. If you see another student using Microsoft, setting up Microsoft servers, they're probably in later classes than you, and they might be able to help you as well. Okay, so it created a disk, put it right there. we're ready to drop that disk into a virtual machine and boot it. So I'm going to go back to Hyper-V, go to the settings of my Nano server, go to the iSCSI controller, add a hard drive, browse for the Nano disk, click OK, and start it. I don't want to boot to the network, so I'm just not going to press enter. If you want that to stop, go to firmware, move up the hard disk so it always boots to the hard disk. So I'm signed in. If I go to my DC, go to the computer container, hit refresh, I can see my Nano right there. I can open up a command prompt, enter PS session, Nano, sign in. I can use this command, Disk Imaging Service Manager. That's what DISM means, Disk Imaging Service Manager. So if you want to install software and don't want to use PowerShell, this is the way you do it. The book mentions this too. So if I want to install IIS, I can do, or something like I can do online, enable, a feature, all. I don't know if this will work because I don't know if it has that, but we'll try. Oh, so, sorry, deployment, imaging service and management tool. It didn't know that. So let me try DNS. It doesn't know that, a software either. Again, this is an NanoServer. I only added one package. But you can play around with that. Guys, I'm going to exit out of here. NanoServer's done. Last one is Docker. So I installed the Docker utility already. I pulled my images. Guys, we can't use this utility for Docker. So Docker info. Docker's installed. The Windows type, the OS type is Windows. I'm not creating Linux machines. I'm creating Windows machines. I'm going to create a machine, Docker, create. The port number is 8888, and I'm going to map that to port 80 in the virtual machine. Name is web server, whatever you want to call it. This is all in the documentation. I'm going to call this, give it a host name of CS01-WS for web server. I want to make it interactive. Set up a TTY terminal to that container. And the image I'm going to base it off of is the Microsoft image I did a pull of. Docker container list. There's the image I just created. If I want to start it, there it is. It's up and running. It's been up for 3 seconds. I'm mapping that port number. If I want, I can now connect to it. Launch PowerShell, or we can try the DISM command. It's installing it. I'm just going to create a simple HTML file to test it. Guys, what does this command do? Copy file from one location to another. What if I did this? Copy from my console to a text file. I don't need to specify the C drive because I'm on the C drive. So when I hit enter, look how my prompt changes. You know, it just carries me to the new line. So I'm going to type in HTML. I shouldn't have put that there, but it's all right. If I press F6, it'll save the file. If I do the word type, it'll display the file. So if I go to the real machine and type in local host guys, I have that extra slash there. So we created a Nano a container. I can do, guys, what's the command to get out of it? No, to disconnect while leaving it running.
Control P, Control Q.
Control P, Control Q. Okay, Control P, Control Q. Docker container list. It's still running. Control C will stop the container. We don't want to stop it, we want to leave it running. Okay, guys, that's the last one. With Docker, I don't have to deal with the overhead of creating that whole virtualization section with containers. Anyone ever use Chromebook? Chromebook has Linux now. You can have a Linux virtual machine that is locked down. And inside that virtual machine is a Linux container that is not locked down. So you can do anything you want to that Linux container. So by default, all Chromebooks are coming out with virtualization and a container already built in, so you can run any Linux command that you want or install any Linux software that you want. So it's just becoming common knowledge. You know, it's common now to start using containers. So it's something you need to start playing with. You are going to see it. How long has containers been out? Do you know?
It's been quite a bit. Not 10 years yet, but more than 5, I feel like.
Yeah, and it's just, it's becoming commonplace in the workplace. I can remember 20 years ago using Solaris OS, using ZFS to capture your a snapshot of your hard disk and then mounting it as a separate container. That was 20 years ago. And that's all this container stuff is just all based off of that.
Is Linux in the Windows Store a container?
ZFS snapshots. And that's you take a snapshot of your hard disk and then you do whatever you want to that snapshot. You can mount it and it becomes a container. Separate OS, you know. So it's been around for I don't know how long. You know, and this was Oracle Solaris. It doesn't exist anymore. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Linux in the Windows Store, is that a container, or is that?
No, that's a Linux subsystem that you can install right on Windows. You know, it's not really a container at all. It's just running on the real machine, just like, you know, a different command interpreter. So, guys, that's it. I'm going to stop recording.